Hey y'all, this is Blazing Diamond Rose again. I'm actually doing a second video today. Um, Surprisingly, there was a few things in my video that I actually missed, even though I was trying to keep it short. So I'll just cover it now. Um, yeah, I was again. It's called Noontide Part 2, right? I'm gonna try to stick to my little outline and script here very much, but I want you to know what kind of like lit me up and set me off to go ahead and do this second video today. I was like, I had these I've had these weird dreams before. I've already talked about my dreams and stuff like that. But I've had certain dreams that like really try to focus in on my physical nature, and not a sexual way. Although I've had those dreams too, and a sexual way of people I love or people I just seen on TV or some other stuff. But the ones that were most heartbreaking and infuriating were the ones of me and my family and whatnot. But anyway, right? But and these particular scenarios that I'm talking about, along with the other stuff that I'm going to talk about briefly, is like honing in on my physical nature of my trying to make me insecure, self-conscious more than I would be. And I had some self-conscious aspects to me when I was younger, physically wise, that I grew out of. And these things, they try to find it. Just get the main point is to do everything you can to bring your self-esteem down, bring your self-confidence down, because the more they can attack and wear down your character, the more they're hoping to mold you, that you'll seek some type of relief, some type of acceptance from these things that constantly bombarding you and bickering with you, or trying to infuriate you, or trying to make you perverted and lustful and greedy, or make you angry, or stupid, and desperate, so why you might do something criminal, or just all kind of dumb stuff, right? So it's the constant bombardment. I've said before, it's just plain and simple, to where eventually you'll get so exhausted, so frustrated, so tired, so irritated, that you'll just either go with the flow or snap or do something harmful to yourself or somebody else, right? But in these particular situations, they'll like hone in on my physical nature of the shape of my body, or the clothes I wear. I had some dream years ago in 2020. This junk has been going on for like over 13, 14 years. But anyway, right? I had some dream. It was right when I got separated from my ex-husband, right? And I was trying to prove my independence again. I didn't know if we was going to reunify or whatever. Anyway, that didn't happen. But the point is that while I was going through that process, trying to heal, trying to get myself together, right, and I had just a whole bunch of other random dreams, but one of them just was like, really, really, right? It was this dream where some girl from when I was in elementary or whatever, I had several girls. It was like 3 or 4 different girls from people when I was in elementary. Talk about they could depend, if they wore my jeans would be baggy on them, right? And so I'm like, I was like 40 years old and bringing up elementary kids when I was in elementary. I'm like, what the hell? That's not even something I'm thinking about. It was weird because it was in sync with some pants I had bought that day from Walmart or whatever. So I could go to this damn interview or whatever, and I was trying on the pants, in the mirror or whatever, and trying to see, oh, look. And then the next thing I know, that night, along with some other dreams I had, some ridiculous ones, dream invasions. But like, really, just like, what the hell is that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would stuff to just throw you off? Like, why would I care? It's just stupid stuff to make you hone in on yourself and be self-conscious. Or they made me self-conscious about my overbite, or my chipped tooth, whatever. I used to be extremely self-conscious about that, but then I got over it. I was like, but my point of bringing it up, I didn't want to make a video about that, but my point of bringing it up, what it really set me off and pissed me off, right, is I had another dream the other day where I was wearing some shorts. Well, no, I had been wearing some shorts earlier that day in the store while I was doing shopping and stuff for a customer. And I was like, it's hot. It's still summertime. But anyway, I'm a grown dang woman. I don't gotta explain myself. I'm not out trying to get attention. And I'm like, if I wanted attention, it'll be different. But that's not even the point. That same night, I get a dream with they throwing some damn teenagers on me, or supposed teenagers on me, supposed teenagers at me, that is, looking at some girl, whatever, with her shorts or whatever on, or barely any shorts on, or whatever it looks like. I was like, what the heck? And then the point is to try to find some other justification for trying to sexually harass you or assault you. Whether it be in a dream or whether it be in reality, right? And the thing about it is, why is that so infuriating? It's not that I haven't seen some people wear some real wild crap, but these dreams, they've already attacked my family. They came from my heart. They did degrading things, degrading the images, the godly images of my family members, of my elders, of my handicapped sister. You know what I'm saying? Just of throwing little babies and then try to change their character as if they're adults to confuse you, mess with your head. All kind of sick, abominable scenarios. Right? So the core of it, again, it has nothing to do with sexual attraction. Right? It has to do with demonization. Right? With demons, right? True demons, demonic, occultic, satanic, witchcraft and sorcery. Plain and simple, right? That's all it is. It has nothing to do with sexual preference or attraction, and how these things attack and why they attack, based simply on what they attack, right? And what they try to throw at you. So I don't know. I've read some things. I don't know. I have read some things of different scenarios and afflictions of other targeted individuals of what's been thrown at them. But I just want you to understand that, again, we're not dealing with people. We are not dealing with people. We're dealing with puppets, or tools, but we're not dealing with human mentality. Human mentality doesn't act like that. Human mentality doesn't do things like that. That's not It's exactly what the Lord said in His Word. We war not against flesh and blood, right? But spiritual hosts of wickedness in high places, high and low places, plain and simple. I'm gonna get into my my little notes I make, so I didn't want to go on and on about that because that just really pissed me off. There's no justification for rape. There's no justification for sexual assault or harassment. Some people, you can go farther than others. Maybe they did like you, or maybe this, but then there's the whole spectrum of the other extreme. Like, who would ever do that in their right mind? Who would ever assault a child in their right mind, right? Who would ever assault an elderly person or a disabled person? Who does that? Who would even imagine that or want to fantasize about that? You know what I'm saying? These things are so far off, they have to be demonically influenced. And if we are if these things are thrown at us and we're able to overcome them, even if sometimes we may feel tempted or weird situation, just weird stuff. If we can overcome it with God and faith, then that plain and simple. That means it's not of us. It's something we have to choose to overrule, right? Plain and simple. It's another tactic and scheme of the enemy. The younger you are, the more naive you are, the easier it is to try to manipulate you and get in your head and mess with you. But the older we are, right, we should be able to discern these things better and encourage our children better, our younger members better, and be able to encourage and receive wisdom from ones that are older than us. I want to help them, encourage them, keep their path, maintain their path, that the enemy's trying to throw them off now, that now they're in their golden years, right? They're about to meet God. You know what I'm saying? But quickly before I go into that, my video, the other part of my video, there's this I loved Maya Angelou. I didn't worship her like she was some god, but I loved her. I considered her, like, back in the day, that is like one of my spiritual mothers. I loved her poems and stuff like that. There was a lot of things I admired because I would want those things in myself, or I could see those things in myself. There's some similarities and things, and then there's things that's just no, that's all her. She's Dr. Maya Angelou. But I was watching a video about her years ago, where she quoted this quote that I didn't necessarily agree with. I kind of I got her point and I liked it to an extent, but there was something that just set me off in there. That's not the word, set off, but it just didn't sit right with me. I couldn't agree with it all the way, right? But the point what it said is, Homo sum humani nihil ami alinam puto. Right? But basically, it was from some dude, some dude named Terrence. Knew, but anyway, he said, I am human, and therefore nothing human is alien to him. Now, at face value, in the context of what she was speaking, she was talking about trying, no matter how grievous the situation, but trying to not allow it to humble yourself and have empathy to an extent, right? To not try to allow yourself to be judge, jury, and executioner on yourself and other people, right? But so therefore they took that stance of nothing human. If it's human, it can't be alien to them, right? But the problem with that from these things, from these demonic dreams and thoughts and things that I've just seen and heard on the news and researched about, it's just like I just can't, and just read from the Bible, I can't agree with that, right? So that's saying, that's associating all sins with human beings. But human beings were influenced by the serpent. The serpent introduced it to them, right? They still had to make a choice to actually sin and go against God, but he planted a seed in them, a seed of rebellion, a seed of sin, right? A seed of perversion. He helped plant that in them, right? And so he wasn't human, right? So when they partook in that, agreed with that, decided they was going to go against God and be in agreement with this stranger, right? This strange being, this creature, right? They opened the door for all sorts of sin, right? But as we know, sin originated with Satan, when he decided to go against God while he was in heaven. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, my point of saying that is that what's the word say again? That we war not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual hosts of wickedness, right? So we have a fallen nature because of the decision that our original ancestors decided to do in rebellion against God and in compliance with a creature, right? Not something that they was already identifying with and doing, but a decision they made to go along with him. Or not even him, but whatever it was, the creature. Go along with it, right? And follow his suggestion and stuff like that. So these things introduce, help plant seeds and suggestions, right? That we should automatically set alarms off in our head, especially if they're not natural temptations, right? That, oh, like, hold up, that is foreign to me, and that isn't human, that's demonic, right? And so when we see things for what they are and don't identify with them, that is, then we help set ourselves apart and we help ourselves heal and be able to reconcile with God, because we can recognize it for what he says it is, right? We're in agreement with him, not in agreement with the creature or agreement with the world to try to pacify ourselves or pacify others, just to, hoping they'll all end and just all this so-called buffing and buffeting will stop. No, right? Like I was saying earlier in my earlier video, there's going to be a schism. It's set there by God. We're not meant to agree with everything. We're meant to have a filter, a conscience, a heart that we're constantly trying to filter and clean, that he's constantly trying to filter and clean and develop and mature. You can't do that if you're just a lint trap or a toilet, right? The fortunate thing about the toilet, it goes into a sewer that has filters and purifiers. It's not just a holding tank. It just doesn't stay there and be stench and stink and just, that's the end of it, right? It's a system, right? So that's not what our minds are. Our minds aren't just some holding tank, right? Our hearts, our organs aren't just some holding tanks. They're all filters. Every single one of them has their main properties. Their main responsibilities are to filter things out for the body, for the blood, to nourish the body, to help it continue to grow and function, right? That's the same. That's God at his finest work, right? And then, so when we go against that, we help cause dysfunction on us in multiple levels. If we continue to go against him and then be in agreement with these creatures, these demonic spirits, and follow our own fallen nature, because once we're in the fallen nature, you may think, well, it's just a whole soiree. It's just a whole soiree of things that you can do, and it'd be like, you don't stop to think whether you should do it or not. You just caught up in like, ooh, I can do this, I can do that. What can I not do? Not whether it's really relevant or necessary. Just the thought that you can make something or do something or whatever, right? Anyway, right? Yeah. So yeah, I was kind of that's infuriated about that, right? Because how do they groom children? How do they groom elderly people to participate and want to be someone's pimp or madame? That's what I was talking about earlier that I said I wasn't. How do they get people to want to be on drugs or hardcore drugs at that? Just sniff stuff up in their nose or inject stuff in their arms and then try to get others to join in with them as if that's the best thing, right? And they see where they were and what they went to. They just see the before and after, and we're like, well, you just see the before and after. Who would want to follow that, right? If you think someone is acting like a crack fiend or looking like a crack fiend, or like, what's appealing about that? That wouldn't be appealing on any nature. Like, you see the before, the after, you see the process. I'm like, dang, I see what they're going through. I don't want to follow that. Right? That wouldn't even be entertainment. That'd just be like, oh, whoa. If you feel anything, it might be pity or indifference to be like, dang, I don't want to go that route. But that's not something you would want to dive in. Right? But anyway, I'm this was part 2, Noontide, part 2. Target grooming and conditioning through dream rape, projected temptations, and homosexual and deviant gauging. Cycling skits of threes and unfrees, refrees, demons masquerading and mascotting. Masquerading and mascotting. And family and friends and co-workers, celebrities you admire or admired in the past. Such imagery is puppeted and pimped. Cougar or Don Juan type personality sent to condition, fear, sexual abuse, violence, fantasy, scapegoating, and trusting only clique or mob type mentalities. Demonic entities will attempt to set narratives and psychological profiles. They're hoping you'll assimilate through delusionment, frustration, exhaustion, false comparisons, and perceived alienation of loved ones. Perceived alienation from loved ones. Right? The agenda is to have you psychologically lost, psychologically heartbroken, and distraught, and focused on superficial objectives and carnal matters of the fallen nature of humanity. Men, women, whether they be husbands and wives, parents, children, young or older, just starting out on their own, elderly or disabled. Satanic forces, neither do satanic forces, nor does God discriminate. Think about the plague, right? Think about natural disasters before they start having weaponized advancements in the military where they can manipulate the weather and stuff like that, weaponize the weather and stuff. But before they had that, right? It was like they had bigger fish to fry. But it was like before they had that, right? Satanic forces don't discriminate. God doesn't discriminate. It's people that discriminate, right? People discriminate based on individual and collective agendas, preferences, biases, and beliefs. That's people. We have preferences. We have things that we don't want to do. We have favorites, right? We have stubbornness. You know what I'm saying? The devil can't just be stubborn. You know, God tells him, like, yeah, you can mess with that one, or now you need to leave that one alone, or yeah, you can mess with that one, you can do to a certain level, a certain allowance of things for God's own reasoning. He can't be stubborn. You know, when God tells him something, even though he's still the devil and saying he still got to listen to God. People can act like they don't know God at all and go against him, right? They have that somewhat leadway momentarily, right? until Jesus comes back. But anyway, yeah, it's people who discriminate because we innately have preferences. We innately have favoritism. We innately have stereotypes and biases. You know what I'm saying? We have likes and dislikes. We don't like everything. We don't dislike everything. We don't love everything. We don't hate everything. Right? We have preferences. Right? Demons do not. Right? From what I've learned and observed from my own afflictions, bombardment of abominable thoughts, images, sounds, or behaviors thrown at me for the past, what I say, 14, 13 years, 13, 14 years, 14, 15, somewhere like that anyway. And have studied and researched on social engineering, brainwashing experiments, rape and assault, demographic and psychological, statistical info, feminism, misogyny, and homosexual hazing. Notice I said hazing. Right? Homosexual hazing, grooming, and phobia, such targeting is never solely from a human assailant or perpetrator or mere shadow government agency. That's my belief. That's my observation. Right? That's what I deduce from my research that I've done over the past years on trying to understand this crazy. It's not crazy, not even a word. It's just, wow. Where are you going? You know? As Christians, we are called to acknowledge our fallen human nature and continually seek redemption, renewal, and sanctification with Christ. By learning to separate ourselves from the world by our daily responses to our Heavenly Father. In other words, we seek the chastity of His righteousness. In other words, we seek the chastity of His righteous, resurrected nature and seek to live and die to glorify Him. By our ultimate pursuit of Him in love, not some strange obsession, infatuation, or ever brewing murderous envy and false rivalry. Think about that. Let that marinate for a while, especially that last part. These things, they're trying to cause obsessions, compulsive disorders. They're trying to cause fixations on people. They're trying to cause idolatry. They can't cause murders and suicides, right? They're trying to make stalkers and terrorists, right? Like, really? It's like, but again, once you know, you can't say that you don't know. And so you have to do your own due diligence, right? In overcoming these things that are trying to overwhelm you, right? And not play into it, right? Because it's not just some minute parts. It's people trying to manipulate, triangulate, and all that stuff. Not people, but you know what I mean. Trying to triangulate all these different situations and convolute it. But the agenda is to get people to cancel each other out, right? Jesus teaches us and urges us through discipline, modesty, faith, and lifestyle practice how to develop maturity in order to help manifest a state of contentment, even in the seemingly most depraved and harsh circumstances. Even in the most seemingly depraved and harsh circumstances. The key reference there is to Philippians 4:12-13. It's knowing how to be both abased and abound, and how to be both hungry and full regarding righteousness. Know how to be both abased and abound, both hungry and full for righteousness. Again, we are not bottomless, right? We're not in a constant falling state in which these things try to condition us to, where we just get ever worse. Right? We're supposed to be getting better. But even that has a limit, because you can't ever go over God. Right? So at any time in that, we're supposed to be able to just relish and rest in Him. Rest in our salvation. Rest in our mentality and our attitude and our gratitude for our salvation. Our joy of righteousness and salvation, of love, of our loved ones, of the love in our heart, of the love God has for us. And be content in that. Right? Even in the midst of adversity and trial. They're like, man, I'm aware of all this stuff, but yeah, I still have my joy and my peace, because I know where I'm going, where I'm from, and I know this is just the battlefield. This is just the valley of decision, right? This is just the me being called out on the water, or called out on the fire, right? Are you, where was I? All that essentially means to me is agape. The word agape. The agape, what God's, the agape in the sense of God, of biblical love. God, what God says about love. God's love. Ultimate sacrifice that He already did, already established. It's always open. Right? It's always full. But yet it's empty of itself. Right? Which means He can always receive more, and He can always give more. He can always receive more, and He can always give more. Right? And He's always willing to. He's never not willing to. That's the nature we want to aspire to. And being able to be content. Learning how to be content. Not just on the edge, like I was talking about, aggravated and frustrated. It's like you find 1 minute and next minute you swing into bipolar mode that these things want us to be, because they constantly, like what I said earlier in my video. This is they attention seekers. Right? You don't want to be, like let's say, you don't want to feed into that. That's not the type of frequency you want to have. If you're going to give those things something, give them static. Right? But not even that. God calls us not to give them static. They won't purposely try and confuse people. They'll just be confused by their own malice. Right? And so if you join into that, then you go out with them. So if they're going to tap into you, let them, again, like how Jesus was saying, just be you. Rest in Him. Rise in Him. Right? Fight with Him. Fight as He would fight. How did He fight the devil? When the devil came at Him, right? Multiple times. How did He address the devil when the devil tried to speak to Him through His people, through His family, through His apostles? Right? So again, all that essentially means to me is agape love. And then, are you willing to take up your cross and roll away the stone? Could and would you recognize the smile or touch of your loved ones within a reckless crowd of zealots? God bless.